on YouTube? Justin Fuller here, and today I've got a 2024 Honda Pilot LX with me. That's your base model. So we are gonna go over how is this different from a 2023, and then of course, how does this vehicle stack up to other makes and models out there in the world? So let's hop on in. Alright guys, so before we start jumping in and talking about what's underneath the hood, the gas mileage, the cargo space, the seating, the leather, the cloth, the touchscreen, all of that, I want to start with the basics and just have you understand where this lives as far as in the world of Honda Pilots. So this is your LX, right? This starts at $38,485. Now, I want you to understand the models that are around it, right? So LX is your base model. Above that, you have a Honda Sport, which is $40,995. Then it jumps up to your EXL, which is $43,795. Now, then you take a weird jump. You go to a Trail Sport, which is kind of an offshoot, which is a little bit more rugged. Chances are, if you've seen a commercial for a Honda Pilot, that's what you've seen. And those are $49,795. Let me read and make sure. Now, above that, technically, though it is less expensive, is the Touring model, which is $48,295. And then you've got that Elite, that 6 model, which starts at $53,875, right? So I want you to understand that there are some different trim levels that are going to give you different items in the vehicle. But for today, we're going to talk about this LX. And then when we get to a certain part, I'm going to talk about, hey, what do I get if I jump up to that Sport? If I want to spend that extra $2 grand, roughly $2,500, what extras will I get? We'll go over that here in a little bit. All right, guys, so let's talk about what's underneath the hood of this 2024 Honda Pilot LX. Great news. Doesn't matter if you buy the LX or if you spend that $53,795 or whatever it is for that very top line, the exact same engine lives in this vehicle. So you're looking at a 3.5 liter V6 engine putting out 285 horsepower. Now that's going to run out to a 10-speed transmission and then go out to either a 2-wheel or all-wheel drive depending on what you've decided to purchase. Now, when it comes to comparing the 24 versus the 2023 model, they are the exact same. Both are going to put out 285 horsepower, so there's no difference there. But I want to throw a comparison up on the screen so you can understand how does this car stack up to other makes and models out there in the world. So go ahead and take a look at that. Now, while that's up there, I will remind you that if you want the 23 and you can save a little bit of money and maybe find something pre-owned that's maybe a higher level, not a bad choice. There's not a lot of differences when it comes to 23s and 24s. So here we are at the back near the gas cap, and there's a reason for that. I want to talk to you about miles per gallon. So if you're looking at a 2-wheel drive model of this car, you're looking at 19 in the city and 27 on the highway. Now, if you drop down or drop up, however you want to view that, up to the all-wheel drive model, then you're looking at 19 in the city, stays the exact same, but 25 on the highway. So you're going to lose a couple miles per gallon. Now, I do want to remind you, if you decide to go with a Trail Sport for some reason, you're going to be looking at 18 in the city and 23 on the highway, so you're going to lose out on both ends of that. So I want to throw a comparison up on the screen for miles per gallon so you can understand how does the 2024 Honda Pilot compare to other makes and models out there in the world. Now, while that's up on the screen, I'll remind you, the 23 and the 24 are the exact same in this scenario. So it's not going to matter if you can find one that's pre-owned, it's a little bit cheaper, your gas mileage is going to be the same. All right, guys, so chances are, if you were looking at a Honda Pilot, there are going to be a couple things that are important to you. One, I need to seat a lot of people, and 2, cargo space is going to matter. So let's take a look at the cargo space in the back of this. Now, while I'm popping this open, I'll remind you, this one is not a powered tailgate. If you want a powered tailgate, you're going to have to climb trim levels. So just keep that in mind in case that's something that's important to you. Now, in the back, there's a couple things that I want to point out, so let me flip this around here. The first is the car comes with carpeted floor mats. Understand that's standard. It doesn't cost you extra. There are some makes and models out there that will charge you additionally for that. Now, I've got the seats folded down here, but I'll pull one up just so you can see. So back here, you've got 18.6 cubic feet of cargo space. So this is usable in the sense of like, hey, if I need to throw maybe some carry-ons or something smaller, one big, large item, you'll be okay. Now in here, I want to point out a couple things. One, you can see I have the plastic side up right now. I can actually open this up and create more space. I can also flip this around if I wanted to go with a carpeted side. So it's nice that they've made it to where you can use carpet or you can go plastic depending on what you're doing, and then have hidden cargo space that you can take advantage of. I will point out that if you get into the EXL model, it is a deeper well. Just something kind of interesting that I learned on the last review, which I happen to do on a 2024 Honda Pilot EXL. Now, over here on the side, I want to point out a couple things. Now, you're going to find that there's not a spare back here, right? But you're going to see this panel right here. This is where you can pop this off and drop the spare down below, much like a truck. Now, over here, I'm going to unlock these if I can. Let's get these unlocked here, and I'll show you because in here is going to be your jack gear accessories and all of that. And then of course my favorite, this funnel, which I'll explain right now. So if you don't know what this funnel is, that's okay. It's not a tiny beer bong and it's not for playing instruments, right? And it's not for, Happy New Year. No, none of those things. But I'll explain what this is because it's actually kind of important. So what this is for is if I was to run out of gas, I need a way to hold this valve open. Because now it is valved, right? I don't have a cap anymore. So if I ran out of gas, I'm on the side of the road, I may not have a gas can on me. What this does is hold it open to where I could pour gas down into that in case I didn't have a gas can on me. So in case you ever need this, understand that's what this is for and where it lives. All right, guys, so while we're back here, I want to do two things. One, I want to throw a comparison up so you can see how does this car stack to other makes and models out there in the world as far as the cargo space behind the third row. Now, while that's up on the screen, I'll remind you, if you're looking at a 2023 versus a 2024, it's not going to matter. You're going to have that same 18.6 cubic feet of space. So now that you're taking a look at that, let's fold the seats down and talk about a little bit more space. So when you get into the back and you fold down this third row, you now have 48.5 cubic feet of cargo space in the back of the car, right? So understand 2023 versus 2024, the exact same, doesn't matter. You are good to go in that aspect. But while we're back here, I just want to point out a couple things for the third row before we jump into the third row and I actually show you what it's like to sit in it. And that's that you've got cup holders, you've got air vents and different things back here. You're not going to find USB-Cs back here. You are going to have to climb models. And in the very back end of the car, you're not going to find like a cigarette lighter plug back there where you could plug in like a charger. You're going to have to climb trim levels to get that as well. But just know that those are features that are available depending on the trim level that you're on. But I will point out you do have all your tethers and your anchors in case you need to put car seats in the very back end of the car. So before we jump and fold this row down, let's talk about a couple things. One, how does the 48.5 cubic feet of space stack up to other makes and models out there in the world? So I'm going to throw a comparison up on the screen so you can see that. And then once again, just to remind you, doesn't matter 2023, 2024, they are the exact same when it comes to the cargo space dimensions. All right, guys, so when you throw down the second row, you now have 87 cubic feet of cargo space to work with. That is quite a bit of cargo space. Now, if you wanted to throw like maybe a twin or a full air mattress back here and be able to camp in your car in case things went awry, you absolutely could. So let's talk about the comparison. You've got 87 cubic feet of cargo space in this vehicle behind the first row, right? Meaning folding down the second row and the third row. So I'm going to throw a comparison up so you can see how does this car stack up against other makes and models out there in the world. While that's up, I'll just remind you, if you're looking at a 2023 or a 2024, they're the exact same dimensions, so that doesn't matter. You're probably seeing a theme as it goes right there. Not a lot of changes from the 23 to the 24. Before we jump into the third row and start talking about seating and amenities and cloth and leather and all those different things, I want to take a quick second to talk about something very important that I find a lot of people struggle with, and that's understanding. If I'm in the LX model, right, I'm looking at 38,000, $895 or whatever it was, and I'm thinking about jumping up to that Sport. One, how much extra money is it going to cost me? And two, what are the additional items that I'm going to get? That's always hard to understand. So I'm going to throw that up on the screen. I'm going to show you how much additional you're going to spend, which I want to say is about $2,500. And then secondarily, what is the list of items that I'm going to get by jumping up to that Sport? So you can understand if the LX is really the vehicle for you, or maybe you want to spend a little bit of extra money and get that Sport. All right, guys, so here we are in the third row of this vehicle, which I'll say is impressive. As a 6 foot, 250 pound man, I can actually sit here and do it comfortably. I don't have to, do one of these numbers or slide my legs across or sit diagonal. I can actually sit, and I have this almost all the way back. I took one click up just to give myself a little bit of space. Now, if you push up a little bit further, I'd have tons of space to work with. But let's talk about that. You've got 32.5 inches of leg space in the third row of this vehicle. So, of course, I want to throw a comparison up on the screen so you can see how does this car stack up against other makes and models out there in the world. So go ahead and take a look at that comparison. Now, while that's up, I'll remind you, doesn't matter if you're looking at the 2023 or 2024, dimensions on leg space are going to be the exact same, so you're good to go there. So here we are in the second row of this vehicle. So a little bit more spacious. I'm not gonna lie, when you get into the second row, you've got a little bit more space to work with. So you've got 40.8 inches of leg space in this compared to that 32.5 that's in the back. So I've got the seat in front of me pushed all the way back, and I still have got a couple inches back here. So as far as spacing goes, you're pretty much good to go. Now, I pointed this out earlier and you saw it, but I've got a center console that I can flip down that's got some storage here. It's got cup holders and that sort of thing. So understand that you have this to take advantage of if you want to. I can also throw this up. So if I needed to make a complete third row over here, we absolutely could if we needed to. All right, so I want to throw a comparison up so you can understand how does the leg space, the 40.8 inches of leg space in the second row, stack up to other makes and models out there in the world. So I'm going to throw that up on the screen. While that's up there, I'll once again remind you, compared to a 2023 or 2024, it is the exact dimensions, so it doesn't make a difference. Now, while I'm in here, I will point out LX, you are looking at a cloth interior. It almost got like a nylon or rayon kind of feel, maybe a little neoprene action, but you can see they've done a few different textures textures going here. So I've got kind of a half racing stripe that lives here. You can actually see a spot on this one up there. And then I've got a textured fill here and a textured fill here. A lot of stitching going on, live. I like the look of it. It's pretty cool. But I can see that, you know, there are some stains here. There are things that you're going to have to consider because it is a lighter gray that you're looking at inside of this vehicle. Now, if you're thinking to yourself you want leather, you are going to need to climb trim levels. I believe the EXL is going to be where the leather is going to start, and then it's going to be in all the models above that. So just something to keep in mind if leather is going to be important to you, or there are aftermarket companies that will wrap vehicles in leather for usually, I think a 3-row vehicle is probably around $2 to $3 grand. So know that you could get an LX and put leather in it. A lot of times in showrooms, you'll go and you'll see some car that they've tricked out and done a bunch of stuff to, and they'll add leather to like a base model. So understand that is an option that's available to you. It just might not be direct through Honda. Now, as far as amenities that go in the second row, I just want to point out you've got air vents back here. Of course, I've got 2 USB-Cs that I can access as well. I do have one pocket here, and then in typical Honda fashion, no secondary pocket. You got to pay like, I don't know, however many thousands of dollars to climb trim levels to get a pocket. Always nonsense to me, but understand that that's a thing. Over here, I've got cup holders and lots of storage. So a couple cup holders, some storage, some additional storage down here. And you can see I've got that same gray interior, and then the look and feel of the dark on top, the gray in the middle, and then black again. So anywhere dirt's going to live down here where you're going to kick with your feet is a darker color. All right, guys, so here we are up in the front row of this vehicle, and there's a couple things I want to talk to you. First, you've got 41 inches of leg space up here. That's the same as it's been for years and years and years. And if you look in like the Accord, the CR-V, a lot of vehicles, they all share that same 41 inches. So as you cross different types of Hondas, you're probably going to find the exact same number. So kind of interesting there. I will point out, on that side and this side, depending on the trim level you get, is going to depend on whether you have a manual seat or maybe you have a powered seat on that side and a manual on this one, or powered over there and powered over there. So I want you to understand, depending on the trim level of the vehicle, it may affect whether you have powered seats. So if that's a decision that is big for you on your car, understand it may cause you to jump trim levels to get to what you want. You can see those interiors I was talking about and those different textures that they have as far as the seats go and the coloring. And then over on the door, the theme stays the same. When you get up here, I do have leather here with a storage space up here, air vents, air vents. Down here we'll touch in just a second, and you'll come across the same. So using kind of some plays on some flats and some glossy looks, and then some different textures. Now let's talk about the center stack here. Nice big armrest, I like that. When you flip it open, all you've got is a big hole. So no USB in there, nothing that you can connect the phone up to get to Android Auto or anything like that to keep the wires hidden. So they're gonna look like that. Kind of a bummer that they didn't drop something in there to make this a little bit easier, or just make CarPlay and Android Auto wireless. But you're not gonna find that in the LX model. Now, let's talk about some of these buttons that you're gonna see here. So you don't have a classic shifter anymore. So when you throw it in reverse, you're gonna get that, and then you'll see your backup camera comes on. While we're talking about backup cameras, I'll just point out a couple different things. You got 3 different views with Honda. So about 170 degrees, standard backup camera, and then one aimed straight down. So if you're backing up to a garage, a wall, a bush, or whatever, another car, you can see. Now this dotted line is where your hatch is gonna open. So it's kind of helpful. If you're backing up and you need to leave space to get items out, then you wanna make sure you got space. If you're parallel parking, you wanna make sure you're on the other side of that solid line. So understand that you have all of these to take advantage of. Down here, I've got some drive modes. When you select them, you'll see a couple of, the display come on here. Right now you see Econ, Snow, or Tow. Now your idle stop start. Whenever you come to a stop at a light, it'll typically turn off the engine but leave all the electronics and the AC on. If you want to turn that feature off, you can press this button right here. You are going to have to press that every single time you get in the car if you want to turn this on, because anytime it clicks the engine on, this automatically comes on. If you're looking for like a delete or something like that, turn it completely off. I think there's some aftermarket stuff out there, but nothing direct through Honda that you can do. Now, if you press this button right here, this is your hill descent control, right? So if you're going down a hill, instead of burning up your brakes, this is gonna be your best friend. Now over here, you've got a parking brake electronic. Lift it up with your foot on the brake to set it. When you do so, it'll light up red and then say brake up here, and then to release it, press down. Now brake hold, what it's designed to do is I can leave the car and drive, and I can press the brake hold button. Now you're gonna see brake hold and hold come up there. The hold means it's now holding the brake, so I can let my foot off the brake so I'm not touching anything down there while the car's in drive. Then when I wanna move forward, maybe I'm in a drive-through line or bad traffic, I roll forward, I come to a complete stop, and then it'll say hold, and now it's holding the brake for me again. I can release my foot. So it's just to prevent like me from wearing out and getting tired from stopping the traffic or whatever it is. So a convenience feature is what you're looking at here. Now, cup holders, I've got some paper in this one. So 2 cup holders here. I don't have a wireless charger. You're gonna have to climb trim levels to get that. And then what they've done is, because this is the only USB up here, whether you wanna use USB or USB-C, you're gonna have this cable that's gonna, you can get a really short one, but then you can't pick up your phone and look at it as easy. It's messy, I don't like it, right? You got this weird I mean, that's kind of cool, I guess, until you take a turn. Functionality up here, though, kind of sucks, if we're being honest. But you've got, you know, a couple different ways to charge different things if you need to. I feel like they kind of dropped the ball here when they could have put additional charging in here to run a wire out or something, or keep it nice and clean so we don't have a mess up here. So really quickly, I want to talk to you about the steering wheel and just some of the controls and give you just an overall look of it. Sometimes you look at a steering wheel and there is a lot going on and it's overwhelming and you're like, I'm not going to be able to remember where these buttons are when I'm driving. This one's a little bit cleaner and easier to use. So over here on your left side, you've got a menu button that you can hit, a home button. That pulls up the menu here, and then I can scroll. You can see me with my thumb scrolling to get to all these different options. Now, I'm not going to go through them, but just know that you have several options here that you can go through to take advantage of. Now, over here on the right side is where you get to some of the Honda Sensing Suite. If you're not familiar with that, that's some additional safety features that use things like cameras up here to detect lines on the road and radar down in the grill. So let me explain some of these features. First one I'm going to explain is lane keep assist. When you turn this feature on, just like you see right here, you're going to see it appear right here. What that does is it actively turns the camera on to start reading lines on the road. So if you start to drift a little bit out of your lane, it'll actually correct for you and keep you centered. It's not going to overpower you or anything. It's just there so that you don't accidentally drift into another car because you got distracted by, you know, your coffee or your kids or your dog or whatever the case may be. So lane keep assist. Now the next one is adaptive cruise control. So what happens is I get up to the speed that I want, right? I turn on my adaptive cruise control, and then I'm going to select the distance that it keeps, right? So I've pressed this to pick my speed. I'm like, boom, okay, I got my speed, 65. Now I'm going to press this box. You're going to see boxes appear or disappear. The more boxes, the more space it's going to keep between me and the car in front of me. And it's using the radar down in the grill to bounce it off that car and back. So this way, if I'm going 65 and a guy gets in front of me going 55, it'll slow me down without having to mess with this. And then when I get out from behind him, it'll take me back up to my original speed that I had picked. Now, if you're just saying, hey, I want classic cruise control, just press and hold this button. It'll flip over and just say cruise mode selected. Or if you want to flip back to the adaptive cruise control, boom, there you go. Now you're back to that. Now, there are a couple other features that are related to Honda Sensing that I want to show you. So let's jump into those. They're going to be under safety support right here. So I'm going to jump in here. On the LX, you're only going to see a couple of them, and that's road departure mitigation, meaning if I start to drive off the shoulder of the road, it'll give me an audible alert and shake the wheel to say, hey, wake up, pay attention. You may be getting drowsy. Secondary feature there is collision mitigation braking. So that is more related to adaptive cruise control. It's going to use that radar down in the grill to detect cars in front of me. So if it's looking like I'm going to rear in another car, it can actually alert me, flash in the dash, give me an audible alert, and then apply the brakes to help prevent the accident, right? So a couple different features that you've got going on here as far as safety goes, even in a base model. All right, guys, so before we start to jump into this and go over Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and all the other features that touchscreens wants, I just want to kind of quickly walk you through. So I'm going to throw something on the screen so you can understand that depending on the trim level you pick is going to affect the size of your touchscreen and the audio that's provided. So in the LX, you're looking at a 7-inch touchscreen with 240 watts. Now, if you jump up to that Sport model, understand, still a 7-inch touchscreen with 240 watts. Now, when you get into the EXL and the Trail Sport, then you're looking at 9 speakers with 245 watts, so 5 extra watts and a couple extra speakers if you're climbing a couple trim levels. And then when you get to that Touring and that Elite level, that's when you're going to start to see, changes in touchscreen size. And then, of course, you're looking at a Bose 12-speaker system with a mystery when it comes to the wattage. I think it's around 300 something, but they're very secretive about this. I don't know why. So let's just start with what the basics are that exist on the Honda touchscreen. They have dumbed this thing down so much over the last couple of years, it's kind of depressing. They're really banking on you using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, because if you're not, this is what you see. It's a very basic look. Like if I jump over to the radio, I mean, we're looking at black and white here. We were looking at different color grays. For jumping between media, same thing. It's not pretty to look at. So just understand when you're in here and you're playing with this stuff, there is not a whole lot that's going to be going on that you can take advantage of or that's pretty to look at. It is definitely set up on them counting on you using something else. Now, if you need to get to sound settings, Bluetooth settings, any of those features, you can scroll through here and then pick what you want. So if it was Bluetooth that you want, you could. And understand I'm touching to do this as well. And then you could change or add a device or whatever you see. So you can see I'm using a Pixel 7a as we speak. Let's talk about the other side of that. If I'm going to be using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, boom, I've jumped over. It is a wired connection, so I want you to understand that. I have connected up my phone. Now, if you're not familiar with Android Auto, it simply allows you to take advantage of some of the apps that live on your phone up here on your touchscreen. So as you can see, I have immediate directions to like the nearest Starbucks or the nearest gas station where I've created shortcuts if I want to quickly call my Google phone number, right? So just to make life easier, you could set up a contact if you have a specific person you call, and then you can rearrange and change all the apps in the order that they live in, and you can customize the background, right? So they're really counting on you using this to play with and enjoy and not really mess with theirs. They're just saying, hey, we've given up on that. We're just going to go to this and hope that this is what they're going to take advantage of, and they're kind of banking on that. So you can see that I've got, you know, my audio options over here and the map over here. I happen to use Google Maps, but you could use Waze, Apple Maps, whatever it is. Understand you can customize this as well. If I want to jump into the settings, and this is where I can scroll down. I don't want to say it's a little bit further down. Where is it? Change layout, where I can go navigation closer to driver, and now when I jump back, boom, my navigation's on this side and my audio and whatnot is on the other side. So there is some customization you need to do, but it's only through Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. They've really taken it away from the actual Honda side of things. Now, if you like this and you're saying, cool, man, this gives me a lot of things I want. I've got Spotify, I've got my maps, my things that I want. That's awesome. But if you're thinking to yourself, man, it'd be really cool if I could pull up like Netflix or Amazon Prime, well, I've got an option for you. So what you're seeing on the screen now looks completely different than what you saw previously, right? Now I've got the Play Store, I've got Netflix, I've got Amazon, I've got VLC, I've got Yahoo Mail. I've got all kinds of different things that I can take advantage of. And that's because what I've done is I've connected up an AI CarPlay box to it. So this is the CPC 200T. It is through CarLink Kit. CarPlay.com. So I'm going to throw all this info, some I'll throw on the screen, some I'll throw in the description so that you can check this out. But really cool. I have one of their older generation models, and they sent me out the new one and asked me to review it. Now this one I believe is roughly around 155 bucks, and then with my coupon code you should be able to save some additional money. I'm an affiliate, so just keep that in mind. But what I like about this is I can jump in, I can come over here and say, hey, I'm taking a long road trip. Maybe I want to take advantage of Netflix and watch something and say, cool, let me come down here, let me select a show, let me come find the show I want, hit play. Yeah, cool, let's watch this show and drive down the road. So kind of cool that it unlocks some additional apps that I can take advantage of, right? So that's one part to this that I really like. Now let me jump back to the home screen here real quick. The other part that I really care about and like about this is when I jump into certain apps, it's not forcing me to use the Apple CarPlay or Android version of the app. It's going to allow me to take advantage of Spotify, much as if I was using a tablet or my phone or maybe a desktop dashboard, right? So this way I can jump in, I can run those searches, I can get to my playlist. I have all these different menus to look at, all of these different options. Whereas when you're using CarPlay and Android Auto, it's kind of limiting what you can see and what you can do. It won't let you type in a search. It's going to force you to use voice command, and then you're going to mess it up half the time. You can still use the voice command, but you can also type it in here, right? So you don't, or maybe your passenger can type it in while you drive, right? I hate having to use the voice command for everything. It becomes a hassle. So it's just really nice that they've set this up and unlocked these apps to where I can jump in and say, cool, I want to go to a specific artist, but then when I get to that artist, I want to be able to look at, you know, all of their different stuff that's going on, right? Maybe I want to see their most popular songs, and then I want to see their albums and all of this additional info. That's where something like this AI CarPlay box really comes into play. So if you're interested in it, I will throw all the info down in the description so that you can buy one or check it out, check for compatibility, things like that. Obviously, I'm seeing this Pilot. I've used it in a couple different vehicles. It works in my Jeep as well, but they'll have that on their website as far as if there's a vehicle it's not compatible with. So we made it through the entire car. We went over gas mileage and engines and touchscreen sizes and cargo space and leg space and all those different things. I want to give you a couple thoughts on the car and then revisit all those comparisons really quickly. For an LX model, this is a great equipped vehicle. Under the hood, you've got 285 horsepower coming out of a V6 engine, going out to a 10-speed transmission, then to two-wheel or all-wheel drive, depending on which level you pick. Understand between two-wheel and all-wheel drive, there is going to be a cost difference, so that's something to be aware of. Let's do a comparison again so you can understand how does the 285 horsepower in this vehicle stack up to other makes and models out there in the world. So take a look at that. Remember, 23, 24, doesn't matter what you pick. It's going to be the exact same as far as what's under the hood. Now, gas mileage, you've got 19 in the city and 27 on the highway, or 25, depending on if you're two-wheel or all-wheel drive. And then know that if you jump to that Trail Sport, 18 in the city, 23 on the highway. But I want to throw that comparison because you see how this 19 and 27 in the LX two-wheel drive model, for the sake of this, stacks up to other makes and models out there in the world. So go ahead and take a look at that. Once again, a reminder, 23 versus 24 doesn't matter. They're going to be the exact same. Now, when you get into the front row of this vehicle, you've got 41 inches of leg space in this car. Lots of space. 6 foot, 250. I can man spread all I want, so not going to be a problem there. So understand if you're a bigger guy, bigger lady, whatever the case may be, you're going to be just fine. Now, throw up that comparison, see how the 41 inches of leg space in this vehicle stacks up to other makes and models out there in the world. Now, when you jump into that second row, you got 40.8 inches of leg space in the second row. Plenty. I was just fine. I was comfortable back there. But I want you to understand how that stacks up to other makes and models out there in the world. So go ahead and take a look at that on the screen. And a reminder, 23 versus 24 doesn't matter, the exact same, right? Now, when you jump into that third row, 32.5 inches of leg space in the back. It's usable. For an adult, it's even usable. It used to be that, only kids could fit in the third row. An adult can actually fit there. Now, climbing in and out of the door to get back there, not super easy. I can do it. I'm a decent athletic, still got some limbs that work pretty well. If I was super old, probably wouldn't want to be doing that. Throw up that comparison, see how the 32.5 inches of leg space stacks up to other makes and models out there in the world. Now that you've seen that, let's talk about that cargo space in the very back. With the seats all the way up, right? The third row up, 18.6 cubic feet of cargo space back there. So throw comparison up so you can see how this car stacks up to other makes and models out there in the world. When you fold those seats down, now behind the second row, I believe you've got 48.5 cubic feet of cargo space. So I'm gonna throw up a comparison, see how this car stacks up to other makes and models out there in the world when it comes to that. And then if you fold all those, the second and third row down, so all the way back up to this front row, you've got 78 cubic feet of cargo space. So let's throw up that comparison so you understand how this car stacks up to other makes and models out there in the world. So that is pretty much every comparison that we went over, and then all the other stuff that we talked about, touchscreens depending on trim levels, and powered seats depending on trim levels and all of that. Honestly, if I was shopping for an LX, I'd probably spend the extra $2,500 and get the Sport personally, which a reminder, if you want to get the Sport, 25 extra bucks, and hey, why don't I throw up that list of all those items that you would gain by jumping up to a Sport? Now, I would tell you the EXL is probably going to be the most popular model just based off price point and what it has in the vehicle. Charles Sport is really kind of, to me, more of a marketing thing. You're not going to take that thing off-road. Chances are you're just going to drive it around, right? And then you're touring in your Elites. If you really want to spend top dollar and you don't want to buy something else, then hey, it's out there and you can take advantage of it. So with that said, I hope you'll do a couple things. I hope you'll press the like button. Hope you like the way I present the content and it makes sense to you. Two, leave a comment. If you feel like I missed something or something you want me to go over or you have questions, please do leave a comment. Third, I hope you subscribe to the channel so when I produce videos like this, you will receive them. And then lastly, I hope you'll share the video. If you got some friends that are shopping for a vehicle, maybe they're shopping for a Pilot, maybe they're shopping for an Odyssey, this might be something worth looking at to understand some of those differences. And then, hey, if I'm thinking of a 23 versus 24, we already know the answer to that, but maybe you're thinking LX, maybe you're thinking EXL, maybe you're thinking Sport, know that I've got a lot of different videos out there that you can take advantage of. So like, comment, subscribe, all the things. Later, guys.